How's it going, everybody? So today is unfortunately a terrible day to be a crypto investor, as basically every coin is down at least 5%, if not much more. And I just basically wanted to come on here and be a bit of a crypto therapist for everybody. I know that it is very hard to get through these dips emotionally. I feel it as well. Like, there's really nothing worse than waking up in the morning and seeing your crypto portfolio crashing. But at the end of the day, guys, days like today are the best days to accumulate. And of course, that is not financial advice, but if you are buying into fear consistently, you will be rewarded in the long term, and I don't think that this is changing anything with that thesis. Guys, I got into Bitcoin back in like April of 2022 when we were kind of on our way down from that local high of 69,000. I started buying at 40,000 and I continued to dollar cost average all the way to the bottom, and guys, that was a terrifying time to be into crypto. It really was. Like, there was times when I just felt so dumb for even investing into Bitcoin. I was like, what am I doing? Like, I should just be buying stocks or something more stable. But you know what? Regardless of those emotions, I continued to buy because I understood the thesis behind Bitcoin. And what I'm referring to by that is just the fact that it is perfect money. Unlike every government in the world where they can just print unlimited amounts of their currency, Bitcoin is set to a limited supply of 21 million. There will never be more than that. And once we do get closer to that 21 million, the inflation rate becomes so insignificant that there basically isn't one. So guys, in my opinion, it is the perfect store of value. And there's also so many other reasons, like the fact that you can hold unlimited amounts of Bitcoin in your pocket. And compared to other stores of value like gold and silver, if you have a substantial amount of it, you quite literally need to like store it somewhere else. Like, you can't even keep it in your house because it takes up so much space. And it is also incredibly difficult to move. Like, for example, you can't just travel across countries with like $100 million worth of gold or whatever. Like, it's just impossible. So yeah, in my opinion, those things are just why I believe in Bitcoin so much. And that doesn't even account for all of the institutional adoption that is taking place as we speak. So yeah, there's just so many bullish cases for Bitcoin. So for those reasons, I continued to buy, and my average cost ended up being about $22,000 for Bitcoin. And fast forward 3 years after feeling like the biggest idiot in the world, Bitcoin ended up running all the way up to 126,000. And on the safest asset in crypto, I was able to make about a 5x return on my initial investment. So with all that being said, guys, I understand that investing into Bitcoin right now at $78,000 seems like a terrible idea, and everybody on social media is saying that crypto and Bitcoin is dead and that it's losing hype and momentum and that it will never come back. But in reality, I just believe that that is all just a bunch of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And typically when it comes to investing, you should not be listening to the average person, because the average person typically follows the herd, and the herd is typically wrong. So yeah, can we go lower? Of course. We could continue to drop for Bitcoin. We could go as low as $50,000, but nobody knows if we will continue to go lower. This could very well be the bottom, and we could start to trend back up towards 150 to 200K tomorrow. So the moral of the story is, guys, do not listen to the fear and deploy a dollar cost average strategy. I have never suggested on my channel to do lump sum buys. So like, for example, if you have $10,000 to invest, I don't believe that you should just invest all of that $10,000 today, because you will become way too emotional and you'll feel the pain much more. But if you instead, invest $500 a week every single day that we have red days, I believe that that will help you invest in a much less emotional state. And I do believe that that is very important, especially if you have a track record of panic selling. But alright guys, with all that being said, I did want to mention quite a few bullish and somewhat bearish catalysts that are taking place right now, and show you guys why I believe this weakness is taking place. So the first reason is something that I have been talking about quite a bit on my channel for the past 1 to 2 weeks, and that is the fact that the US government has officially started their shutdown today. This is of course very unfortunate to see, because when the government is shut down, it creates a lot of uncertainty for markets, and markets hate uncertainty, and that's exactly what we're seeing right here. But guys, the good news is that most most people do not expect this government shutdown to be prolonged like the last one. As you can see here on Kalshi, people are only giving it a 61% chance that this government shutdown will last more than 3 days, and only a 31% chance that it will last more than 5 days. So if this does end up being the case, and we reopen our government relatively soon, I believe that that will remove a lot of uncertainty from markets, and that could help Bitcoin and crypto start to trend back in the right direction. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is unfortunately not as bullish of a scenario as I was hoping, but that is the fact that Trump has officially selected his next Fed chair, and that person is Kevin Warsh. Now, I believe that this tweet lays the situation out perfectly, and shout out to Dan for this. If you guys haven't watched his channel, it is amazing and I highly recommend it. He's a macro-minded investor just like I am, and there's not many of those people in the crypto space, so it is a breath of fresh air to watch somebody like him. But anyways, let's take a look at what he said here. So Kevin Warsh is actually friendly to Bitcoin, which is a somewhat positive thing. However, I don't believe that that is game-changing by any means, because I wouldn't say that Jerome Powell isn't friendly towards Bitcoin. So it's not like Bitcoin has been being targeted directly. So what matters much more than that is whether or not he will cut rates and start aggressive quantitative easing. But as we go down, there's a lot of headlines that are calling him a hawk. And what it means to be a hawk in terms of the Fed is that they are not willing to cut rates as rapidly as we'd like, and that they are not willing to start quantitative easing like we've seen in the past. Now, this is true and false at the same time. Kevin Warsh has never been anti-rate cuts, but he is anti-quantitative easing. So I do believe that a lot of people right now in crypto and just risk assets in general are somewhat worried because everybody is calling him a hawkish selection. And of course, that is not what risk asset holders were hoping for. But at the same time, guys, Trump has stated publicly that he will be cutting rates without him being pressured into doing so. So I do believe that that is very bullish. When you go on over to the CME Group FedWatch tool that predicts FOMC decision outcomes, you can see that it is very likely that he will cut rates at least 2 times this year, if not potentially 3 or 4. I think that if we do end up cutting rates 3 or 4 more times, that will be incredibly bullish for risk on assets. So although Kevin Warsh will not be doing aggressive quantitative easing like Kevin Hassett or Rick Ryder, I still believe that he will be a much more dovish option for the Fed, and this could potentially end up being a bullish catalyst for the crypto space. But in the short term, people are worried about this, and I do believe that that is why we are seeing some fear enter the market. But give it time, and once he does start to be in front of the public eye and people realize that he is willing to cut the rates, I still think that this will be very bullish. So we'll just have to see what ends up playing out with this, but this could delay my potential bull run thesis by a couple of months, because I was hoping that once Kevin Hassett was appointed, that people would start to price in his aggressive QE on the way, and that could potentially start the bull run as soon as like today. But since people are somewhat worried about Warsh, this could end up being delayed until May to potentially late 2026. But of course, we will have to continue to monitor the situation because I do not have a crystal ball. I'm just giving you guys my best estimates based on what is playing out in the macro. All right, guys, and then the last thing I wanted to take a look at is the Bitcoin liquidation chart. So I do believe that today's drop was caused by quite a bit of liquidations and potentially manipulation from large exchanges and market makers. But as you guys can see, and this is zoomed out on the 3-month, we have basically liquidated every single trader on this entire chart. You can see that there is basically no leverage longs beneath us, and there is an absurd amount of leverage shorts above us. I have never seen this chart so unbalanced in my entire life, and that makes me believe that at some point, and of course I do not know when, but at some point Bitcoin will start to trend back in the upwards direction and liquidate all of these traders. Typically that is what happens when there is a crazy unbalance on this chart, because it gives market makers and exchanges a reason to manipulate the price of Bitcoin to target these liquidation levels. We've seen it so many times in the past, and I don't see why it wouldn't happen again. So in my opinion, it is very hard to be bearish right now because everybody's bearish. And as I said, when everybody is bearish or everybody is bullish, you should typically be thinking the opposite direction will happen. That's exactly what happened when Bitcoin was at 126,000, and quite literally everybody was bullish, everybody was longing the market, nobody was shorting the market. And then fast forward 4 months, we have a mass liquidation event and we are back down to $78,000. inverse. So guys, I think the inverse will happen. It could happen very, very quickly, and I get that everybody's bearish right now, and I get that it seems impossible, but it's not. At the end of the day, this could happen, and it could happen at any point. So in my opinion, guys, continue to dollar cost average, continue to ignore the FUD, aka the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and start to think like smart money. Accumulate when people are scared and not paying attention, and sell when people are greedy and talking about Bitcoin 24/7. But alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. Stay strong, seriously. If you're having a hard time emotionally, turn off your computer, leave your phone in your house, take a walk, do something else, go spend time with family, anything but stare at these charts. It's not worth it to be scared over this type of stuff. We always recover, and it won't be any different this time around. Alright guys, talk to you tomorrow. Peace.